clients.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
In the beginning was a...
Hello and welcome. Of course, let's start off by saying Happy New Year to you all. This is NTA Tuesday Live, and I'm Cyril Stober. And of course, this is the very first Tuesday Live of the year 2019. And of course, it's coming to you on the very first day of January 2019. Tonight we'll look at some developmental programs that impacted on the lives of the citizenry in 2018 and the challenges that slowed growth. Now, many would say a major landmark for Nigeria in 2018 was the recovery from recession and 6 quarters or thereabouts of growth since then. Now, this was largely attributed to programs like the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, which helped in reducing inflation from a peak of more than 18% in 2017 to about 11% in November last year. Now, Nigeria also recorded gains in the agriculture sector, especially in rice production, saving the country millions of naira in foreign exchange for importation. Now, analysts say much has been recorded in the areas of infrastructural development, with the third Niger bridge, road networks going on, and improved power supply. But of course, the year was not without major challenges, such as herders-farmers clashes and marauding bandits that threatened overall growth. There are those who say much more could have been achieved in meeting the aspirations of Nigerians, but others would say check the records of Nigeria's international ranking and the endorsement of the administration's fight against corruption. The gains of 2018, the gaps, and the outlook for 2019 is the focus tonight. But first, let's get to see this report by Musa Abubakar.
Nigeria's path to growth and economic prosperity has witnessed some improvement in 2018. The quest for economic diversification has grown stronger with the volatility of oil price in the international market. The agricultural sector, one of the focal points in diversifying the economy, has recorded growth in the year. Notable amongst achievements recorded in the sector is the Anchor Borrower Scheme, which has so far created 250,000 direct and 1.25 million indirect jobs within 2 years of the program. Rice importation has seen significant declines with concerted efforts by the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development as well as CBN's foreign exchange policy for rice importation. The power sector, which is pivotal for economic growth and development, has witnessed improvement with major power transmission stations like Mayo Bilwa in Adamawa, Ijegbo and Odogunya in Lagos, Apo in Abuja, Ikot Ekpene switching station in Akwa Ibom, Maiduguri in Borno, and Damaturu in Yobe have been completed to support electricity transmission. In the transport sector, Abuja-Kaduna Rail Line and Abuja Metro Rail project were completed and commissioned, while progress have been made on Lagos-Kano rail lines as well as Lagos-Ibadan segments of the project. Additional 1,531 kilometers of roads have been constructed and 1,008 kilometers rehabilitated across the country. What is worthy of note is there is major federal road project going on in every state of the federation. The second Niger Bridge, which has reached 16% completion, is said to be another notable project which is said has the potential to unlock the growth and development of the southeast. Other laudable projects that have been completed and is set to generate about 5,000 jobs is the Kaduna Inland Dry Port commissioned by President Muhammadu Buhari with the capacity to handle 29,000 tons of containers yearly. Program to empower the youths and make them more productive is the Empower scheme, which has so far engaged about 500,000 graduates. More is, however, expected in 2019 with the presentation of the budget and International Monetary Fund's focus of 2.3% growth for the economy, which comes down to key projects like the Mambila Hydropower project, which is expected to commence in 2019. And when completed, will add 3,050 megawatt to the national grid. Also on road infrastructure, the federal government have ordered the dualization of Mokwa and Abuja, Kefi, Lafia and Makurdi roads. All these projects are expected to contribute in accelerating growth and development in 2019 and beyond.
Well, our report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's introduce our guest to you. We welcome Farouk Adamu Aliyu, former minority leader of the House of Representatives, is an industrialist and businessman. Thanks for being with us here today.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year to viewers.
Let me also welcome Professor Kenny Faye, a development economist. Prof, thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
We're also joined tonight by Mainatara Kogo Umar, who is a lawyer, international affairs analyst on good governance and diplomacy. Mainatara, thanks for being here.
Nigerians.
Right, and also here tonight is Benga Dishino, political editor of the defunct Daily Times, the member of the Nigerian Guild of Editors, and publisher, distinguished Nigerian magazine, and DN News. Thank you for being here tonight.
Compliment of this season.
All right. Okay, as we always say on Tuesday Live, we acquaint you with the procedure at the appropriate time. You can get to be part of the discussion in the studio. The various platforms will be on screen. We advise you take advantage of them. However, for all those who are phoning in tonight, it's the same thing we say every time. This is the start of a new year. Let's hope that we get it right this time. For all those who will be phoning in tonight, do us a favor. When your call gets through, turn down the volume of your TV set. And the best way to know your call is through to the studio is you'll see your name on screen. And once that happens, it tells you that your call has been passed to the studio. And therefore, you're on live. So just go right ahead with a question, comment. Don't bother about the greetings. Keep it short, straight to the point, so others can also get on the platform. So once again, Happy New Year. Thank you for being part of this program. Let's start by looking at what 2018 was. And we begin with you, Farouk Adamu Aliyu. How would you assess 2018 in socio-political parlance?
Well, good evening, viewers, and Happy New Year again. I think it's one of challenges, also of successes. Challenges in areas of security, where we have some challenges in some parts of the country. But then overall, there are a lot of progress. The country has witnessed growth that it had never witnessed before, like this time around, where, as it has been said, all of us in this country have realized that there is improvement in agriculture, there is improvement in output of the people of this country, in terms of livelihood, in terms of how the government relates to the people, how dividend of democracy is given to the people. So, by and large, so far so good.
Okay. Prof, how would you describe 2018?
If I look at the economic side of it, I think there is no doubt at all that Nigeria is in a recovery position. We've come out of recession, we're now moving forward. There are lots of promises that were made, and there is a robust plan. I can tell you it's a very robust plan called Economic Recovery and Growth Plan that captured the majority of what was promised. And so the government is on course to deliver a lot of this. But I have to say that there are challenges. And when you look at all the challenges and sit back, they come into two definitions. One is the debt strategy that enables us to borrow the money, since we don't have the savings, to borrow the money to enable you to do the work that needs to be done, and then getting the private sector to leverage them so that you can borrow less. The second side of it is the revenue generation strategy. How do we generate more revenue to enable us to pay for all of the things we want to spend on? So those are the two that we'll come
Okay, we'll return and look at them in depth, but let's go over to Mainasara.
Yes, in the name of God, most gracious, most benevolent, most merciful. I start by thanking God because it's a noble year, 2018. It's a year of socio-economic and political impregnation for 2019 to deliver the baby. It's a year when some unprecedented things in the history of Nigeria happened. At the beginning of the year, the government clearly shows that nobody is above the law. When houses of some people that believe in kleptonic aggrandizement in the name of being judicial officers were invaded, and they were asked to face the rise of the law. Whether at the end of the litigation they were set free or they were convicted is a different thing. But it's a period when the judicial cycle decided to go into serious self-cleansing by even forwarding names of some judges before the president to approve for their compulsory retirement. It's a year when we have conflict in between national interests and pseudo-political interests. Section 3 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria clearly defines the meaning of government and the structures that compose what is called government, by going ahead to divide the functions diametrically clear: the executive under Section 5, the legislature Section 4, and judiciary Section 6. Now, the clear understanding of the power players, which should have been in the context of mirror of national interest, got digressed in such a situation whereby it ended up us having clear division in between the executive arm and the legislative arm. That clear division led to many things, like I said, unprecedented. For the first time in Nigeria's history, we got the mess of the National Assembly stolen while in plenary. For the first time in history, we got the National Assembly under siege, to the extent the chief security officer of the Federation got removed. For the first time in the history, we got a situation whereby there has never been this monumentous mass defection even though it's a progressive point, because it is a move that really bring about the possibility of everyone to belong into his own political lane. In a situation whereby some of the parties decided that they want to entrench real democratic culture by giving the mandate of those who lead party and eventually lead in the government by contesting to the electorates, and said everybody should go back to his base and get your mandate from your polling booth, coming to your ward, coming to your local government, state, of which is supposed to be the decision, because the common man, the citizenry, are the custodian benefactors of any democratic power play. At the end of it, some people said, no, this party is being autocratic. They decided to defect to other parties, where it will be a party that will really give them the political protection for them to perpetrate what they have, they believe in their ideological sense. And again, it's the same year when we got some developmental projects that you never envisage. The expansion of the road from Abuja down to Kano will go a long way in solving the serious and surmountable problem of insecurity in the area. The Niger Delta Bridge, the second Niger Bridge, is another novel idea. The Lagos-Ibadan Railway, which has been long an abandoned project. We are seeing progression. There is no part of Nigeria today that is not seeing transcension of real democratic dividends in form of one particular capital project or the other. Even the common man now, dividends of democracy have gone to the extent of inside the markets. People are now getting it directly from the source, rather than going into bureaucratic needleness of asking the peasants to go into buying forms and the rest. At the end of it, it will end up as a mirage, and you will never see it realized. At the same time, it is this particular year that we have succeeded in seeing another very important problem. It's important because it's historic, but it's a problem because we need to really put hands on deck to really get it solved. The issue of lack of industrial harmony in the country. We have witnessed many industrial upheavals in the country, which we hope we will quickly surmount that and get everything corrected as we face 2019. And it's a year when the Independent Electoral Commission succeeded in registering more number of political parties than any other period from 1999 to date. At a blow, we got 20-something number of political parties registered, to the extent now we have the medal of having 91 political parties, which I doubt if there is any politician that often he can mention the names of those parties. So whether those number of parties will succeed in convincing the electors that we have really gotten entrenchment of democracy, or will end up confusing them, we live to see. Though many of them are aligning with some of the stronger parties. So it's a year actually filled with many these things. Even in the international sector, when you take it, it's a year when we have gotten what we have never gotten in Nigeria's history from 1960 to date. This is a year when we got the West African countries united together. They even forced President Buhari to accept the leadership of the Economic Community of West Africa. It's the same year when African Union decided to bring about a title that never exists in their books, the African Man of the Year in the fight against corruption, and put it on President Muhammadu Buhari. It's the same year again when we have taken over the leadership of the Lake Chad Basin. It's the same year again when the United Nations declared President Muhammadu Buhari as Man of the Decade, Leader of the Decade in terms of exemplary quality of governance. And it's the year when the International Criminal Court singled out President Buhari as the only leader in the entire world to be so invited as a special guest of honor to grace its silver jubilee at its headquarters. So these are some of the developments we have succeeded, and that is the reason why you have seen leaders of all the major international countries that are really the determinants of political and economic power play in the contemporary world have visited President Buhari in this year. With this, the year 2018, we have gotten about 26 leaders from different parts of the globe coming to seek a model of good governance from our country. So it's a year really we should be thankful for as we look forward to better things in that.
Fine. So there's so many things which we'll consider. But from your perspective, Benga Adeshina,
I wonder what to add. My good friend has summed everything. But I see this past year as a year in which a government came with a clear mission to clear the robberies. Take what happened in Kwara State, for instance. You can see a government that came with a mission, but with some miscreants trying to cause disaffections through their activities. And you see a government so determined to ensure that the peace and the tranquility of the nation is protected. And with their actions, not minding whoever is involved. The culprits were apprehended and the cases are going on. So you can see a focused government who tried to make the life of the citizenry as perfect as possible. Now let's talk how the intervention of my colleagues, which is the journalists, we were not just sitting. We gathered in Asaba during the course of the year to diagnose the nation's problem, and the vice president was invited, who joined us, and we were able to find solutions to some of these problems. It's on the news that most of the solutions were proffered, and many people read, and we passed our resolution to the government. So, with that, I think, in summary, all I can add is we have, in the past year, a government that came up on board to solve the people's problem. And that's why you can see that, as you read in your piece, 50,000 youth, for once, were practically engaged. Because if you remove the youth unemployment in Nigeria, I think our problem is half solved. So you see a focused government who decided to tackle this problem heads on and solving the youthful restlessness. Thank you.
All right, so let's begin to look at some specific areas. And I'd like to, understandably, I'd like to start off with politics, because this is election year anyway. So if we look at 2018, what can we say? Has Nigeria as a country evolved a proper political culture that would put it in good stead for an impending elections in just about a month from now?
Well, not exactly, honestly, because you find out that as politicians, when it's close to election, people tend to defect. So you find out that it's not anything about ideology or about what you believe in, but trying to cross over where you think you can win election. So sadly, in that part, I think politicians need to do quite a lot, that you do not have to be in the party of government to bring about development. We were in opposition for 16 years. We stayed there. We didn't move because we believe that, look, it's our country. Whether you are in power or out of power, you can still help the democracy. And this defection, when you leave your party, most especially if you lose election, and all of a sudden you leave that party just because you lost the election, you're not helping the system. Because if you want to help the system and you believe in what you're doing as a politician, just like how we stayed back to fight and ensure that, look, what was happening was wrong, we are going to right the wrongs. And the only way you can help the system is to make sure there is opposition, credible opposition. As I said, it's our country. I mean, we are in the same country, so whatever is, if the government does well, it's for our collective good. If the government does wrong, it's for our collective bad as well. So I think the earlier we politicians decide to check ourselves, to remain, if you are in opposition, oppose rightly. Don't go and talk anything that you think you will bring down government. No, say things that are right so that the government can correct itself. And then if the government does anything good, say the government is doing well. The people will understand. So in area of whether we have progressed politically, yes and no. Yes to my party. I mean, to my party, yes, we're getting a lot of people joining us. But in the overall, I think we need opposition, credible opposition.
Right, bro. Technocrats are there to run the machinery of government. But again, policy is determined by politicians who drive that process. And certainly, whatever happens in the political sphere would impact the running of government and governance. 2018, did Nigeria's politics positively impact the running of government and governance, or give some, take some, lose some, win some, as they say? How did it impact on general governance?
Well, I think there has been some movement. And for example, if you look at registration, there has been great success in increasing the registration, voter registration. Sitting in my house and watching and going out to the field, you saw more voter education going on. So more sensitivity has come. The public are becoming more increasingly aware of the civic responsibility to register and to vote. Then from the investor part of it, I haven't seen any major scare on the side of investor community about the potential dangers coming forward in the next 2 months. I think they're a bit more relaxed about it. And I think that actually brings another issue, which I think is we need to have more dialogue between the private sector and the political forum, because they need to know the boundaries. I mean, we don't want to talk down our economy and scare investors, so they should know the language and the limits of politicking, so that you don't say things that will drive away all the potential investors that want to come into this country or who are hanging here. So that is important that they know. And I think CBN can convene with an INEC some kind of a compact, like as you have on peace, for them to know on how it could affect business. If you remember, when we postponed the election in 2000, just for 2 weeks, the whole economy, the stock market melted completely. So there are things that can be said or done that can affect investment. So people need to be aware. Politicians need to be sensitive to that. And I also think that it's also important for business people to play with politicians in a sensible way, not in an overdramatic way, because we need to influence policy if it is going to help business. And you know about political economy. There's no separation, clear separation between politics and business. If you say it is for them, then we are hurting ourselves, because they need your inputs to be able to formulate policies that will be friendly to investors and businesses. So that's why we need to maintain a close link with the political class to ensure that you influence the policy that comes forward.
All right, we'll still return to some of those other issues. But Sarah,
yes.
In your opening comments, you did talk about for the first time there was this large registration of political parties, and Prof, of course, has talked about increased political awareness. Well, is there a correlation? I'm worried here between increased political awareness and this massive registration of. Can we see this as the more the merrier, as they say, with 91 parties?
The upside in the numerical number of political parties is predicated upon. I wouldn't give them appreciable point, but I would want to think of the appropriate word to use. I'm disappointed with the political power play. It's this enchantment that makes many people to demand for establishment of new political parties, creation of new political parties. You understand? The politics the current politicians are playing is not in tandem with the founding fathers of Nigeria's democracy. We want a situation whereby politicians will put national interest over and above any primordial consideration. We want a situation whereby politicians will be able to see a subject matter of national importance as a matter of collective concern. For example, there is none of the political parties now that even has voters register. standard voters register. We want to see that one. We want to see evolution of democracy from the grassroots. We want to see a situation whereby every political party at a pinch will be able to say, this is the compendium of its own set objectives for 2019 and beyond for Nigeria. This is a clear ideological standpoint, not one based on slogan. We don't want an issue of slogan. Whatever you bring, if we have it in the already established in the Constitution, there is no point even bringing it as a point of slogan. For example, if you are talking about economic engineering, blah, 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 Section 16 of the Constitution has already made provisions for that. If you are talking about the issue of fight against corruption, Section 15, subsection 5 of the Constitution has made it mandatory on all governmental organs and political players. If you are talking about the issue of security, Section 14, subsection 2 has said that the primary responsibility of governance is security and welfare of the citizenry. We want a situation whereby, look, for example, take for example, the president went round different countries of the world for about almost 2 years or 2.5 years. He succeeded in signing a number of treaties with many countries, bilaterally, multilaterally, at the level of groups and committees and whatever, and being between countries. At the end of it, if we had succeeded, it will succeed in bankrolling approximately about 50 to 70 trillion naira, which will take us so many years without even the headache of finding out where do we source money to fund our budgetary expenditure. But at the same time, we will be able to have all those assets of our stolen wealth outside neutralized into Nigeria's ownership. We will be able to have those culprits that decide to run out of the country return back to face trial or to face trial there under mutual trial arrangement. Now, all these, the Constitution in Section 12 says, 12B says that no treaty with any country or anybody in the world will have a taste of success in Nigeria. It cannot succeed until it has the blessing of the National Assembly, when you have 2/3 of the members of the National Assembly passing it into law. That assemblage of treaty President Buhari sent to the National Assembly is still lying there. It has not gotten even to the first read. The same president now said, okay, since Section 15.5 says it's our collective responsibility to fight corruption, as politicians, we should put the interest of the nation over and above any other interest, in tandem with Sections 14, subsection 3 and 4, Section 15, subsections 3, 4, and 5. The politicians or the National Assembly members, he now said, do us a favor by establishing anti-corruption court, so that we will be able to fast-track the fight against corruption, so that we will be able to get appreciable quantum of convictions. They have not done that up to now. The president said, in view of the number of problems we are having with our electoral processes, establish special or electoral offences commission. The bill has not gone into the first read. Several of such, even the budgetary projections that they will be sent to the National Assembly, it will take an average of 6 to 7. So national interest, absence of national interest in the political power play is what has succeeded in getting decimal support from the citizenry in terms of followers.
Politicking is getting in the way of some governance issues.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But
yes,
again, we said that 2019 is election year. Therefore, 2018 would certainly have had some appreciable, impact on what is expected in 2019. For the fourth estate of the realm, which you represent, how well has it performed in this awareness, building up a political culture, and ensuring that the climate is such that can give birth to what we all expect in 2019?
Thank you, Cyril. I want to look at this issue from like 3-4 points. INEC as a body, how prepared are they? Party behaviors. When we talk of party behavior, we're not talking of politicians who form the leadership and the followers, which is you and me. The youth, I keep emphasizing, plays a very, very crucial role here. What is their placement? Then we talk of ideology. What are the ideologies of our parties? For the INEC, sincerely I give them kudos. They needed money, they've been given, so we learned. And they've been engaging in internal workshops, discussions, seminars. I hope we have more of that, and they round up before the D-Day. The party behavior is so important. I just returned by road today because I think Nigeria is secured now. I tested that today. I drove from Kwara to Abuja, and I thank God I'm here. If I don't see me on screen, we'll talk on that. So now you see a situation in which party followers are tearing posters at this level of our country. What type of youth do we have now? What type of leaders do you have? What type of politicians do you have? It's so common, it's rampant. They tear party flags. So I think we need to get into that. The message, because we are getting around the corner, campaign is on. What message are the politicians passing? Is it money message or is it ideological message?
All right.
I think Nigeria should sit and we should get set.
Okay. At this point, we have a first caller on this program tonight, and Ada is calling in from Jos. Hello, Ada. Happy New Year.
Ada calling from Jos. Yeah. Though the government of the day means well for us, I wonder why we are more divided than ever before. Education and the health sector are relegated to the background with so much medical and educational tourism. My worry now is how can the 2019 budget be funded if the price of oil continues to drop, while the benchmark for the budget is $60 per barrel. Having said this, I'm optimistic that things will get better. For instance, there's improvement in power, but generally there's still hunger and poverty in the land. By God's grace, we'll get there. My prayer is for INEC to conduct a free and fair election. For me, who emerges doesn't really matter, provided the election is free and fair. I wish us a happy new year. God bless Nigeria.
All right. Thank you very much, Ada. Yes, and quite a number of Nigerians have talked about this issue, who say, why is it that 2018 witnessed so many bickerings, wranglings, divisions? In fact, there were calls for, a disintegration. I recall that, and I recall that in one of the programs we did in 2018, we talked, yes, all right, and some have even suggested, some of your former colleagues have also suggested a return to the parliamentary system of government. So we're still talking about, the political atmosphere in the country.
Yeah, honestly, it all has to do with this year, 2019, sadly. You find out how, the issue of insecurity, why are all these attacks now? Why not 2-3 years back? Why are these people calling for disintegration? Why are they calling for, some of my colleagues who speak about parliamentary or whatever system, they don't seem to understand the Constitution. Or people who are asking for Republic of Biafra or anything. Anybody who wants to disintegrate from this country, the Constitution is very clear. Ask your member to table a bill. Let's do it nicely. But because of politics, you find out that people go above board. And see in this country, if nothing, the president, even today in his New Year message, that the election should not be a matter of life and death. And the rhetorics coming from the president and the government is always of peace, unity, and let the Nigerians vote for anybody of their choice. The president had never come out to say, look, you must vote for APC. No. He keeps saying persons of your choice. So you see, if the government is always trying to bring peace, then those on the other side who are certainly on the losing side bring about this division. But all this is a matter of rhetorics. Because look, unfortunately for the agents of doom, this country can never be divided, sadly for them, because we are intertwined. And I'm telling you, by the grace of God, after the election in February, nobody will talk about that again till 2022. That's when they will start talking about these things again. But I call on all of us Nigerians that let's put the interests of this country, at the forefront. You need the country first. You need a place to call Nigeria before you could even start talking about all these kind of things. And to my friend who talks about no party has voters, no. For APC, honestly, there are registered members. We have these registers. And I'm sure even PDP too. Maybe not complete, but parties have some semblance of registration. And also the parties being registered all over, the more the merrier. Because the constitution of this country, which also the Supreme Court gave decision that anybody who fulfills certain conditions shall be given registration. So I think the more the merrier. So
well, as we speak, so many others are
trying to come. Let them come.
We'll probably
they will go back to regional. That's okay. There will probably parties that will be restricted to local governments, to states, regional, and so on and so forth. Then there will be coalition of parties as well. So I think the more the merrier.
Interesting. Someone once said it would be simplistic to think this way, that there is any particular system of government that an economy would thrive in. Is it about a political system? Is that what makes an economy thrive?
Well, they go together, unfortunately, or fortunately. If you look at different theories, Marxist theories, there's a lot of theories, and those theories are about politics and business and governance. So they tend to go together. But what happens is that we are in a market economy, and within the context of our market economy, we have options: parliamentary democracy, presidential system, but we have a very good constitution. The challenge is in the implementation of the constitution. And then also, the market that we have is not a perfect market. And it's the imperfection of the market that makes us constantly ask the CBN to intervention fund, our market failures. Competition is not thriving. SMEs are stitched out completely. We can't access finance. We can't do. So all of these are signs of market imperfection. So, but over time, and as long as there is peace in the polity and committed leadership, you have a sound evolution. And that's why I also said before, it's very important for business and politics to work together. Because in the end of it, it's not you and me. The politicians could go and develop such policies that have nothing that's so aggressive to business. But if you are working with them, you tame them, you influence the thinking and the impact. And when Tony Blair was still a shadow labor minister, he invited me to prepare. That was 1992 or something, to prepare a MSME policy document for him. And that's because I was running business and very well known in UK at that time. So you need to have that organic relationship and dialogue so that you influence the course of economic development and policy development.
Anyway, we'll return to that issue. But let's first see if we can get this call through. The second call tonight, coming in from Benue. Fred, calling in from Benue. Hello, Fred. Fred, good evening.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, go right ahead.
Hello.
Go ahead, Fred. Your name is on the screen.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello.
Well, Fred, we said at the start of this program, your name appears on screen. You're through to the studio. Just go right ahead. Okay, so for all others who will be calling in, once your name is on screen, you know that your call has been passed through to the studio. So just go right ahead. Now, Prof, I said I would return to you on that. What we're trying to establish here is you could choose any system of government, but would that, any particular one, guarantee economic growth? For instance, if you said, look, return to parliamentary system, would that automatically guarantee?
I don't think it is. I don't think it's the system as much as the players that are driving the system.
Now.
You can have a perfect law, but you fall down on implementation. Absolutely. If you have the quality of people who are sitting on the bench, you never get justice.
Right. But there were also other challenges that impacted on both the political life and the economy as well. And some of them had to do with what you started talking about earlier on, Sarah. Kidnapping,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, all these
clashes.
Yes.
In fact, it led to situations where some areas of the country have said, look, it's going to even affect the agriculture, the same agriculture that inroads have been made into.
Yes, it has all to do with the need for us to reevaluate the quality of the political power players. The character of somebody that should give you representation should be above board. Should be somebody that really, like I said, has the nation interest over and above any other interest he is having in it. This issue of insecurity, for example, we need to apply 3 things if we want solution to the problems of insecurity. Number 1, the relevant governmental agencies must educate the citizenry that they are the principal stakeholders in the governance of the country. No matter what policy you will unbundle on behalf of the government for entrenchment in our communities, so long the community there do not appreciate the need for brotherhood policy, they don't appreciate the need that they are the number 1 people that will bring about the atmospheric possibility for entrenchment of peace and security in the area. Most of these terrorists that are doing whatever they are doing in the country, they are doing it with keen collaboration with the local people there. That is the number 1 thing. There should be that bridge in between the citizenry and the law enforcement agency of the government must be bridged. That is one. Secondly, we should appreciate the unfortunate location of Nigeria. Nigeria is located surrounded by francophone countries. If you take, for example, the countries that surround us, the Benin Republic, Niger Republic, Chad, and the Cameroon, all of them happen to be under the leadership of France during the colonial era. Therefore, you cannot succeed in having any panacea to this problem of insecurity without having the support of France. And France will give you support where you really take care of the protection of its own economic interests, because it's an imperialist power. The economic interest there, especially in the northeastern bloc, is very, very germane to having the possibility of having solution to the insecurity problem there. And again, you should really evaluate the topography and the demography of the region that we are talking in question. For example, Cameroon is a corridor to Al-Shabaab, the Central Democratic Republic of Congo, and Kenya and other countries that Al-Shabaab is disturbing. It's a very easy way that Sambisa Forest, is a strait that has gone down to that particular area. We need really to take evaluation of the terrain there and really think of the security action that will match it. Take the case of Chad, for example. Chad is neighboring Sudan, by extension Libya, and by extension the North African countries that suffered the Arab Spring. All the aftermath of the Arab Spring will have itself coming through that particular corridor. If you take the case of Niger Republic as well, Niger Republic is another window to the ISIS of West Africa, which has its headquarters in Mali, through Burkina Faso and other countries that are joining to the distance. So the centrality of it is that you should be able to have a master plan that will really tame the issue of incessant insecurity in the entire Sahel region, and by extension, you now take it to cover the totality of the area of North Africa and Central Africa and the entirety of West Africa. Taking it at the level of only Nigeria and its neighborhood will not give us a solution to that. And most importantly too, the government should have the courage to really unbundle the investigative reports there so that the companies within the Nigerian setting will be understood and will be penalized accordingly to serve as deterrent to using external forces in collaboration to destroy the Nigeria. These are some of the things. There are so many of it that security measures are not so much things that we'll discuss in public. If there is the need, we really bring solution on this problem. It is very important. But the most important thing is that sociological application of the common people, involve them, integrate them, so that they should be the stakeholders. Otherwise, you know, the insurgency generally and the ransom, they are taking people, the kidnappers and the rest, these are faceless people. It's diametrically a very different type of war. It's not a face-to-face combatant. Okay. And again, another problem is that they are relating it with ideology. Ideology, whether faith-based ideology or whatever, is another very difficult war to win.
Okay, still some other issues there, but let's go back to the phones, and we have Bola calling in from Kaduna. Hello, Bola. Bola, yes, we're waiting to hear from you.
Hello, madam, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello. Hello, madam, sir. Hello.
Bola, you're through to the studio. Go right ahead.
Okay. Actually, 2018, we are not surprised of the devotion and the creation of no political party. Because our party chairman has already said it, that they will make sure all the unprogressive members of the party
Yes, what happened? Well, since we lost that call, again, let me state this. Once your name appears on screen, it means that your call is through to the studio. Just go right ahead and turn down the volume of your TV set. It would seem to me that many of those who would call in would still want to listen to their own voices, and that is exactly what leads to the hurlback or the echo. So turn down the volume of your TV, speak to us as soon as your name is on screen. It means you're straight to the studio. Just go right ahead. Now let's come back to some of those things that stood in the way of the growth that was expected in 2018. And we're talking generally here about insecurity, the insurgency, kidnapping, farmers, herders, clashes. But what I want to look at this point here is the role of the media. And we have had people say, why did it seem in 2018 that one segment of the general society was glamorizing the exploits of terrorists and those who were, responsible for putting Nigeria in that situation? Certain headlines were scary. You found headlines saying, oh, Nigerian troops overrun completely. Nigerian troops running away. And people are surprised. Some people have called in to say, we've never seen where your media does not go along with your security forces. That terrorism thrives on publicity. So let's look at the role of the media.
Thank you very much. We, as journalists, we talk of quality of power players, like my colleagues have been saying. And quality of power players go beyond power players. In journalism, we have our code. And we know some people hate, both in the print, in the electronics, etc. That's why we have our in-house mechanism. And I'm sure you're aware, Cyril, that some of our colleagues have been tried for this. But we have a lot of collegial colleagues who report the facts. In this country, I think we should learn to know that when journalists report facts, politicians, I'm sorry to say, have a way of pointing our reports, but the fact is sacred. But what I want to add is, we need to talk of the quality of our leaders. And when you talk of quality of our leaders, let's talk about Mr. President. I'm not a politician, I'm just a journalist. Who is our leader? Who is President Muhammadu Buhari? Everybody knows the record is clear. And when you now mix this up, with the people that surrounds Mr. President, why don't you expunge? Why don't you elaborate? The Minister of Information is one of the men around the President. Femi Adesina is one of the men around the president. Garba Shehu is one of the men around Mr. President. They are doing their job. They are trying to explain the situation in the country to the downtrodden. Why don't we appraise them and tell the world what they are doing? Why must you now bring your searchlights to some people who you think are not doing their job, and because of that you try to crucify journalists? So what I'm saying is, when we talk of quality leadership, we have to talk of the quality of our leaders. What are our leaders doing well? We know that our president is a highly incorruptible person. We know he has been doing his job the way it should be done. And I think these are things we should search our spotlight on. And as I've said, in journalism, people tend to misinterpret our reports. We have our internal code, and I'm sure you give us a pass scorecard in the past year.
If I can respond a little.
Yes, sure.
You know, that brings me to the issue of nationalism, Nigeria, a country. I think some of our friends in the media are not helping matters. Forget about Garba Shehu, forget about Femi Adesina. Now, if headlines show that our military is overrun, who am I trying to impress? I mean, you should have the nationalism in you, that you should try to gauge yourself, censor yourself. There are certain things that, even if they are true, they will be at the detriment of your country. Censor yourself.
No, but we won't do that. Journalists won't do that. We report facts. You see the facts, you report.
But you know,
that
some
is
of
our
these facts
job.
are not facts, are not true.
Well, that's
Honestly,
another story.
No. Honestly,
I'm not talking about that.
No, there are
stories that are reported that are not facts is wrong.
No, there are stories that on the headline about Nigerian military being overrun, which was not true.
No. I don't support that.
Honestly.
You and I won't support that.
Yeah. In the papers today, I read that one foreign company, media, I don't want to mention the name here, that it's propagating news from the terrorists. Now, our journalists have responsibility also to us, as a nation, to counter such reports.
I agree, but what
exactly?
How do you feel about the situation when journalists report the facts and people time it to be wrong reports and they're the facts? We also have that type of situation.
So these are part of the issues that we said. We're looking at 2018 and saying, what were those things that happened in Nigeria that either impacted positively or negatively on the expected growth and development of society? And it's definitely one of them, especially when it comes to the question of insecurity.
Absolutely.
Because there were those who called in to say, from all the media reports so far, Nigeria is a scary place to go in. Prof had talked about investment.
And the constitution there, if to say it should be respected by the players. Section 22 talks about the right to broadcast information, the right to mass media, the freedom for you to own medium to broadcast whatever. But the same constitution, after section 22, section 23 talks about national ethics, national cohesion, national peace, national understanding, social integration of the diverse socio-cultural setting of Nigeria. And the same constitution again, section 24, talks about fundamental duties on the citizens. The mandatory obligation on you, whether you are a journalist, whether you are a teacher, whether you are a politician, to support governmental apparatus, to support our armed forces, to respect our coat of arms, to respect our motto, which as per section 15 subsection 1 says, unity and faith, peace and progress. We must be seen to be united. Even when you are talking about it in the externalization of all these things we are doing, section 19 that talks about the foreign policy drive of Nigeria talks about, number one is the interest of the national cohesion. So you are responsible to ventilate whatever you want to ventilate under section 22, but sections 23 and 24 of the constitution says national interest should be given prominence so that we will have peace, decorum, and maturity in the way we govern our settings. So everybody now is a stakeholder in trying to see Nigeria to becoming a country where peace and justice should reign. So sensationalism in journalism should really be something which will be abhorred, because sections, like I said, 23 and 24 talks us about caution on how Section 22 should be exercised in media broadcast.
Now, from the perspective of the politicians, for instance, we've seen leaders, people in leadership positions, political leaders, come up to say, oh, Nigeria is finished. There will be no Nigeria after such and such a date. Again, coming from the political class.
That is sad, really, really sad, because, and it is all politics, I mean, useless politics. Politics that will not help the country. Because when you destroy your own country, the country you want to come and govern, because all those people making such comments want the government to move so that they come. You know, so you find out that you are fighting yourself by yourself. So I still call on all of us that we are stakeholders in this country. We, what I mean we, the PDP, APC, NPN, whatever, we are all Nigerians, and we need this country to be in peace so we can have a country. So our rhetorics should be such that will unite us, not to divide us. Because the elites are one and the same. The elites in all the parties are one and the same. We're not enemies of the elites. All our rhetorics make the masses downtrodden fight among themselves. The elites don't fight. So I think the earlier the masses realize that the elites up there, we speak the same language. The rhetorics we talk about that bring about division, we don't mean it. We actually mean it down there. So the people should understand and teach us a lesson. Anybody who tries to come with divisive language, you know, that will bring about down of this country should be, you know.
In an election year, the worst always tends to happen to investment and business.
Okay.
What happens is that, and this is particularly pertinent now, because not only that, generally investors don't want to roll over their investment in an election year. Secondly, they want to cash their dividends and take it away. And are not likely to invest new investment. They hold new investment decisions. But in addition to that, the Federal Reserve Bank in America is increasing interest rates. And that is pushing investors to take away their money back to America. And it's happening worldwide.
All right.
The fact that India, Ghana, South Africa, they've devalued their currencies immediately by 10 to 15% because of the outflow of investment.
Okay.
So in this circumstance, we just have to ask for caution and reasonableness in the languages being used.
All right. So economists say there are gaps, and we'll be looking at what those gaps are and how to close those gaps. But that will be in the next part of this program, because right now we'll take a short break. But stay with us. We'll be back.
Nigerians, our fearless officers and men of the Nigerian military are winning the war against Boko Haram. Today, all occupied territories have been recovered and Boko Haram has been degraded. Our affected brothers and sisters are getting their lives back. However, they are now after you and me. In our mosques, churches, schools, motor parks, markets, entertainment centers, and public gatherings. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me. Nigeria, unite against terrorism.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The struggle for independence had been a long and tough one. Our founding fathers and compatriots sacrificed their comfort and even shed their blood. We cannot at this point in history afford to spirit away their sacrifices for immediate but temporary gains of today. Let us emphasize what unites and not what divides us. Working for the unity of purpose with a stronger vision for a better tomorrow. NTA, growing with the nation.
Nigeria, the only country we can train with remarkable potentials to excel. Let us believe in ourselves and change our attitude for the sake of our country and generations unborn. Let us revive our cultural values which are our essence as a nation. Let us renew the spirit of patriotism and hope in our dear country. Do not take or give bribe. Be punctual always. No more African time. We can't expect to be global citizens and operate on African time. Join the queue. Insist that people are attended to on a first-come basis, no matter who they are or where they come from.
Nigeria, good people, great nation.
Make you report any crooked person, object or wakajube movement to police and security agent demo.
The security of our nation now work for all of us, so plus including me and you.
Nigeria, make we unite against terrorism. Now, Federal Minister of Information and Culture bring on this message.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. Still talking about developments in 2018. Let's get to see this second report by Timothy Yusuf.
2018 was a very interesting year as far as Nigeria's political experience.
We have the not too young to run bill that was signed.
2018, no doubt, is the year that came with series of twists and turns as new political parties emerged. Political alignments and realignments became some of the prominent features that shaped the nation's political space as it prepares for the 2019 general elections. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo was among those that opened the floodgates of political drama last year with an open letter to President Muhammadu Buhari. It dovetailed into the launch of the Coalition for Nigeria movement, a group he described as a coalition of all well-meaning Nigerians that will engage in democratic practices.
And I believe that even if there should be anybody that should say that, it shouldn't be the former president.
Despite calls by the former president and several opposition voices urging President Muhammadu Buhari to go into retirement after his first term, he declared for a second term at the National Executive Committee meeting of the All Progressives Congress APC on April 9th, saying his decision was a response to the clamor by Nigerians to recontest. The president went on to win his party primary election.
Hope is rekindled in our hearts that we will give our country forceful leadership.
Moving to the major opposition political party, PDP, 12 aspirants vied for the presidential ticket in October. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar eventually won.
It is a collective responsibility.
2018 being a pre-election year, many political moves were interpreted as an indication of what might happen in 2019. One of such moves was the mass defection from the governing APC to the PDP and a few other parties in July during plenary at the National Assembly. President of the Senate, Dr. Bukola Saraki, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Yakubu Dogara, and 3 state governors, Samuel Otom of Benue, Abdul Fattah Ahmed of Kwara, and Aminu Waziri Tambuwal of Sokoto State also joined the main opposition party.
And all the same, the executive try in their wisdom to manage them.
The defections have not been one-sided as a few PDP members, most notably the PDP's own Senate minority leader, Godswill Akpabio, resigned his position to join the APC.
I would like to be a conspirator who brings about uncommon transformation of Nigeria.
While the PDP basked in the euphoria of defection victories, APC made up for the losses by winning crucial state governorship elections in Osun and Ekiti states.
Congratulations.
In June 2018, former Edo State Governor Adams Oshomole was elected the new national chairman of the APC. President Muhammadu Buhari's non-assent to the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2018 was another issue that generated mixed reactions.
That bill will have plunged this country, especially our hard-earned democratic process, into chaos.
As the 2019 general elections draw near, President Buhari joined other presidential candidates to sign a peace pact, committing themselves to non-violent election. And on a sad note, former President Shehu Shagari died at the tail end of 2018 at the age of 93. The March expected 2019 has finally arrived. No doubt the political space will be busier, but the underlying message stakeholders say remains that of peace during the exercise. In Abuja, Timothy Yusuf, NTA News.
All right, political developments there, but even as politicians crisscross the political landscape with all the defections, the realignments, one theme ran through virtually all of them, and everyone wanted to talk about what they would do, and the Nigerian economy was a favorite subject. Even though many times many Nigerian citizens were a little bit confused about the terms they heard and the terms the politicians used and the things they said they would do. But that brings us to the question of moving the economy forward. Just before we return to what those political terms that politicians have been using, and Prof, here we like us to talk about the gaps where some economists have said existed in Nigerian economy. And even at the time Nigeria exited recession, it was still not clear to a number of citizens. And since people would say these are not palpable things you can see, in other words, you're in recession and they say you're out of recession, and someone asks you and says, does that mean there's more money in my pocket now? Or how does that impact on the price of goods?
Or more food on the table.
Or more food on the table. So
maybe before Professor says anything,
yes.
I mean, out of recession, it's when dollar was about 550 naira to a dollar, and it came back to 360. So, I mean, that's also in and out.
All right. Okay, so Prof.
Anyway, I think the most popular term, which you actually mentioned before, is that we are the poverty capital of the world.
Right. No, we've heard that all over.
We've heard that, and it's a recurring decimal.
Right.
But what I would say is that judge the government on the plan that they have, the integrity of the plan, and the implementation status of the plan. And that's something that I haven't been seeing. We have 3 plans in this country. We have 2043 master plan, infrastructure master plan. We have Vision 2020, and then we have Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. And I can tell you that these plans are very good plans. And the short one, because one is long term, the medium term, the other one is short term. The short term plan is a very robust plan. Everything that they're doing, they're actually doing it off the plan. And I think we need to interrogate that plan so that you can actually be constructive in your criticism, and they can do something with the criticism. Now, in this plan, we reckon that as you saw with the population, we are growing at 3.2%. We've now moved to 198 million people. But the agriculture is not keeping up to that pace. In fact, urbanization is twice the rate. Now, agriculture, according to the plan, is intended to grow at 6.9%, but it hasn't done that. So there are many reasons why it hasn't done that. There has been tremendous progress in agriculture, without a doubt, with Anchor Borrowers Program, with targets that are being met on tomato last year, 2017, rice 2018, we are reversing. And then wheat and others, 2020 and 19. They're on course. But there are more hostages to the fortune, because the devaluation has made all our surrounding neighbors, francophones, finding our currency very cheap. So instead of 1 naira buying the 3 francs, they're now buying 1.5. So they are buying our grains. Now, what we are selling to them are raw food. So we're actually exporting our jobs to our francophone neighbors rather than process them and keep the jobs here. So where does it show? it shows in inflation figures. Because when you see the components of inflation, core inflation, urban inflation, urban index, rural index, and food basket index, the others are around 10%, 10 plus, but the food is 13.7. So the food keeps dragging up the inflation figure. That's why you keep seeing it go. Otherwise, we would have entered single digit. Is the food price. And so that is why you see such challenges at food security. The same thing with industrialization. The target is about 8%, but we're not doing that target now. And it's because of all the same reason I'm going to give to you.
Right.
Now, when you look at government's plan, quite a lot of things on that plan are actually being achieved. You've seen the presidential ease of doing business. That is positive. They exceeded their target. And I hope that they will do more in this year. CBN has been on course, has been rigorously on course in delivering financial system stability and forex flexibility. So you've seen money being made available to importers that are within the fold. And some creative things that they have, like investor exporter window generating forex. So reserves going up, sometimes coming down because of the reason I've just given. Federal Reserve is taking money away, is increasing rates, so monies are disappearing at this moment. But having said that, though, there are weaknesses. If you look at all the weaknesses in the budget and the concerns expressed everywhere, is because, not because we are in debt crisis. We are not in debt crisis. I can give you the figures at all. What we have is a revenue crisis. We're not having enough revenue to fund all the projects that are actually designed within that plan to improve there are good plans and good targets, but you just don't have enough resources to do that. And I hope we'll find time for me to give you the details of how we should go about it.
Right. Talking about that, some have said borrowing shouldn't be. But there's been arguments on both sides. Some say, look, it's okay to borrow, depending on what you're borrowing for. Others have said, no, you don't borrow because it's become another political issue here.
No, let me explain. Where the demand and supply can't meet in terms of budgetary provisions, then you have to fall on three things. You go for your savings. We haven't got the savings. Then you look for private sector to leverage their money. The ARPG plan has copious notes on how to work with the private sector. And they are there. But a lot of them still have to be done. There are some assets that the government has to get rid of or get some privatization on. There are equities in the oil production agreement that are going to release about 800 billion. There are things there, but they are slow in coming. But they are all there on the plan. And in absence of capturing the private sector leverage to reduce external borrowing, the only choice you have now is to go and borrow. But when you are borrowing, there are two aspects of your borrowing. If you look at the Fiscal Responsibility Act in 2007, that actually is the legislative framework for the borrowing, it sets it out very carefully. It says this is an unfinished business. It says don't have fiscal deficit more than 3% of GDP. It says don't borrow for anything other than capital expenditure.
Right, not consumption, right?
Yes. But it hasn't defined capital expenditure good enough. It should have made a distinction between bankable capital projects and infrastructure projects and non-bankable. Those that are bankable, get the private sector to come with the government. Government will put very little money. Private sector will take the risk and it will be on their balance sheet. And they will do it expeditiously and they will retire the loan. There's no issue. But when you borrow for non-bankable projects and you spend that, we're going to hear the story. We haven't even started hearing the story. All right.
Let's quickly go back to the phones now. We have another caller from Binding Kebi this time, and Singila, I do believe we have that. Yeah. Well, let's hear you from Binding Kebi. Hello.
Hello.
Right. Go right ahead.
Hello.
Hello. Go on.
Hello.
Hello. Go right ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
You see, I just want to contribute on this issue of security. You see, like what the other guests have just said, the issue of security, he has made a very good point by citing an example with other countries that surrounded Nigeria. I can recall sometimes back during the last administration, here in KB, I know of a place where we don't even know, first administration, they just bought one container. We don't even know what is inside that container. They station it somewhere close to the border, like the other this very person on the screen has said, close to the border, Kangiwa town. They placed that container there. We don't know who, it was the federal government that brought it, the last administration. They placed it there without notice of anybody. We don't know what is the content of the container and everything. But as soon as they lost the election, nobody knows the whereabouts of that container. They quickly move it away. You see, why I'm even saying that the security challenges in Nigeria has to do with the people that are in the system. They are the same people cross-carpeting from one party to another. Today in APC, tomorrow in PDP. Next tomorrow in APC, the next day in PDP. So they are the same people, toying the masses, trying to divert so many things, trying to neglect and ignore the security aspect of it. So, look at what is happening now. Of recent, the people that kidnapped these Zamfara twins were quickly traced. Why? Because their attention has been diverted to 2019 election. That is why now, small thing, they will catch them. Look at what happened to the people that killed the Alex Bade. They were arrested. So this little time we have to the election, their attention, that is to tell you that the very people that are masterminding the whole thing, they are within the system. Because their attention is now a little bit diverted to 2019 election, so they are a little bit, subsiding their activities. That is why small thing now, they will arrest people. Small thing, they will catch them. But once they are into something, they are in the system, they are the one bringing the weapons, they are doing it. So people that are creating these security challenges, they are within the system. Whether we like it or not, they are within the system. And unless government take a proper action of dealing with whosoever is being involved in this security something, that is the only solution to our problem. Thank you. My name is not a singular, it's singular, F-I-N, singular, not singular, calling from Ronin. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. I'm sure they'll make that correction right there. Okay. Right, so, well, yes,
we were talking about exiting from recession. Officially speaking, we have exited out of recession. But when you take the dynamics of theoretical statistics that we have vis-a-vis the practical reality on the street, you will doubt as to whether or not we are really out of recession. In a situation whereby we have gotten the medal of being the poorest, the capital of, what do you call it, poorest nation, capital of poverty in the world, for example. When you go and get that one, and in a situation whereby currently we are at the bottom, we are number 4 of the country with the lowest life expectancy indices in the world. And in a situation whereby our per capita is so low, and in a situation whereby in the country, for the past 3 years, for example, we have not gotten optimum implementation of budget for up to probably say 40%. We have not succeeded in getting budget for the past 3 years passed by 1st of January like today, which was the practice in the early days of Nigeria's independence. So in a situation whereby, for example, we are using just about 30% of our budgetary projections is for capital projects.
So
while the remaining
what's affecting that? Is it the politics that is standing in the way of?
No, the priority of the power players is the number one most important thing, because they are the ones to embody what is in the budget. They are the ones to determine how much percent of the budgetary estimate that had been passed into law will even be getting appropriate releases. And they are the ones to really superintend as to the implementation of the budget to see what quantum of the budgetary projection has really translated into capital development for the country. In a situation whereby you are going into developing the country without taking the private sector along, interest on any investment loan you want to take is very, very high. You can't succeed in attracting any meaningful growth, not to talk about even development, if you are to go by means of taking facilities from the bank. The government should really go into regulating interest charges by banks. The government should go into regulating the amount of currency in circulation. The government should go into regulation of price control in the country. The government should even go ahead, collaborate with the chambers of commerce and export-free zone authorities so that we will be able to increase the quantum of our external trade. Our bilateral trade with the external world should really be in surplus, not in deficit, if we really want to advance.
Prof, can you really control prices?
We're running a free economy by definition, and that is what people don't want to hear. It's like saying stop all the imports. Nobody wants to hear that. You've already signed up to WTO, which is about expanding trade. And if you expand the trade, there are economies of scale, there are economies of production, there are so many economies. So those are fundamental guiding principles in the way the world is moving in the global economy. But I need to say something. You see, the devil is in the detail if you look into that plan. And that devil is you just do not have the money. The money is not there. If you look at budget implementation, it's 100% on recurrent expenditure.
Exactly.
It's 100% on debt repayment.
Exactly.
But when it comes to capital, that's where we're struggling. And I said it. Nigeria is not in a debt crisis. Let me give you two authorities. Forbes, you know Forbes? Forbes did an analysis of all countries, looked at their national debt, looked at their foreign reserves, and looked at their debt to GDP ratio, and then turned around and voted Nigeria as the best debt management in Africa. Would you believe that? The reason is this. Look at US. US owes $21 trillion. Their foreign reserve is $125 billion. How far is it from Nigeria's reserve? But their debt to GDP ratio is 76%.
Wow.
UK owes $2.3 billion, reserve $164 billion, and 89% is their debt to GDP ratio. China, would you believe, owes $4.3 billion, but a healthy reserve of $3.1 trillion, but still has 41% debt to GDP. And Nigeria is $73 billion, 47 billion reserve, and 21%. It's very low. And that's why they voted Nigeria. And apart from that, CIA did a time series and historical analysis and found that in classing all the countries, Nigeria is number 189 in debt to GDP ratio. Like last year, 2017, at 15.3%. Now, all other countries, Japan was 223%, Greece 180%, UK 90%. African countries are there, Gambia 116%, Ghana 66%. So we have very low. Our problem is not debt crisis. We need to incur those debts, but what are you using the money for? Okay, that's very crucial. And secondly, there are two visions of Nigeria. In 2050, we will have $6.4 trillion. And that will make us number 10 ahead of France, Spain, all these countries. In 2030, it will be $1.64 trillion. That is PricewaterhouseCoopers. Okay, so you can't get there if you're not going to borrow to build infrastructure. And if you look at America, America is the most developed. That's why they can have such high 21 trillion in loan, and then only 160 something in GDP. So the thing is the higher with your infrastructure, the more infrastructure you have, the more they borrow. Okay.
There are two fundamental things missing in Nigeria. In distinction with these countries he mentioned, They are developed because there are two things there that Nigeria is not taking serious, which if we adopt it, we will have all the potentialities to reach out to the level they have reached. The number one thing is that in those countries, they don't neglect planning. If you don't plan, then you are preparing to fail. Up to this time in Nigeria, we don't have the exact numerical number of the population of Nigerians. Up to this time around, we don't have the exact number of the unemployed graduates we have in Nigeria. Up to this time in Nigeria, we don't have the actual statistics to really show to us which particular state has the potentiality of so developmental production. Which particular state has the potentiality of becoming a liability as a result of excessive population of human capital that is there, or excessive illiteracy level, or number of destitutes. We need to really go to the drawing board and be serious about planning. We need to have the details of our statistics based on exact position of our planning, not based on assumptions.
Okay, let's go back to the phones. We have from Port Harcourt, Solomon calling in. Solomon, hello. Is Solomon still there? Hello, Solomon. Right. I think yes.
Can I just break down?
Let me just finish the second one.
Right.
Can I break down
the second one?
Okay.
So that first one, planning, so that to be able to have the details of our components of the resource endowment. The second one is that the government should be serious only when we carry private sector along. No nation succeeds in attaining level of development without carrying private sector along. We must stimulate private sector and carry them as component partners, rather than thinking that government is the driver of everything from beginning to the end.
You see, let me break down in language that small people like us can understand, not economics. I mean, let me break down, all these GDP numbers you're calling. Now, when you talk about budgets not being implemented, 30% and so on, and that recurrent 100%. Now, recurrent are salaries. Yeah. So salaries will be 100%. Now, when you talk of capital, a budget that is supposed to be passed in January is not passed until September. What do you expect the government to do? So you can't expect 100% of that.
No, but revenues are being collected.
So I'm coming. Yes, revenues are being collected, but then you don't even have the time to spend that money. You don't have the time.
No, but the money is not there.
No.
You are running over the budget 3 years,
I'm coming.
June to June.
I'm coming to that. You see, when we talk about borrowing, Mr. Professor, you know that you said it yourself, that we are not in debt crisis.
Yeah.
As a nation.
We're in revenue crisis.
Yes, we are.
I'm coming to that.
No, yes, we are. But at the same time, you could see that what this government is doing, that's the planning my friend is talking about. When we keep saying that these things are not we did not make it. We did not make this thing in 4 years or 3.5 years ago. These things have happened over time. So what this government is trying to do is to do the planning to ensure you borrow, and when you borrow, you spend the money, you follow the money. That's why the TSA has been actualized. You and I can follow the money today. So these are things that are in place to ensure that tomorrow nobody will come and say Nigeria has not planned.
Right. I'm not knocking the government. For goodness sake, the government has done an excellent job in producing a very robust plan called Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. My challenge is that we have to implement the plan. You see, we always have we have fantastic plans in Nigeria, but it's the implementation. The problem is in the implementation. And let me tell you why revenue strategy is very critical. Because what we have is revenue crisis. We have excellent work. The Inland Revenue have done a big drive last year, and they have moved the base from 20 million people, taxpayers, to 35 million people. Excellent result. How can you beat that? In 1 year, they nearly doubled the tax base. And then we say, do more. All the people you are giving pennies and 10,000, get them in the tax base. Get them in. Let them enter into some bank accounts so that the numbers will grow, because you want them to grow the business. Secondly, the Fiscal Responsibility Commission has actually worked with World Bank to produce operating surplus template. It has to be implemented religiously, just as you have done the TSA. And you saw the benefit of TSA. And why is it? 122 agencies have been captured under the Act. And they're supposed to be remitting 80% of the operating surplus and keep 20%.
Right.
But they're not doing that.
Okay.
They're not doing that. But all the money that has been collected from 2007 to now, 11 years, is 1.4 trillion. That 1.4 trillion can actually be collected in a year if we start implementing that template.
All right, we'll still come to revenue, but let's take this caller, Awal from Port Harcourt. Hello, Awal. Awal from Port Harcourt. Yes, Awal, are you there?
Hello.
Well, we'll have to move on because we don't have much time left and we can't keep waiting for that. Now, I wanted to talk about revenue, for instance. Going by what happened in 2018, what are your thoughts about 2019 in terms of revenue? Where would this country be deriving its money from, in simple terms?
Okay, in simple terms, the customs have increased their returns, and it's there. It can be proved. The FIS, all the revenue generating agencies of this government have doubled, almost. So from that, and of course the loans. So that's where we're going to get the revenues from.
There are more areas you can get money from. Remember that we were committed to, according to the plan, to rejig the equity in the oil production contracts. Okay. And we're hoping that about 800 billion will come out of that. And then there are so many government-owned companies that have been slated for privatization. We need to act with speed because this is about private sector engagement so that they can take off the heat. And in power, I know that 1.1 gigawatt power is expected, solar renewable energy is expected to come on the grid. Forget taking it to the grid. Incentivize private sector to produce their own power. After all, they're using generator to generate their power. If you give the incentive, solar will overtake all these other energy sources, and people will provide for themselves. It is incentive. Private sector responds to incentive. Don't tell them government will do this. You're going to give them direct incentive. If you are going to use more, you see, look, you don't subsidize consumption. That is that's what I disagree about subsidizing petroleum products. Why you don't subsidize consumption? You subsidize production.
Okay.
If people are going to produce power, subsidize them to produce the power individually, and you have power in everywhere in this country. And that is missing.
For now, those could also lead to certain distortions.
Yes.
The
solution to that.
So what is the solution?
The solution to that lies in the fact that we must imbibe fiscal discipline. The Fiscal Responsibilities Commission was essentially formed to serve as inspector regarding those governmental agencies on the way they should be disciplined in fiscal management. We don't have the culture of fiscal management. In a situation whereby 2018, for example, which is one of the reasons why we had budget deficit, in a situation whereby you have about 20 to 30 trillion unremitted revenue from governmental agencies, and you can't penalize them, you can't discipline those agencies, is wrong for the system. We should be able to really have the details of serious, what do you call it, inspection regarding the knowledge of what number of barrels do we produce in Nigeria as a country. We don't have that details up to now. How much of that is sold? How much of that goes to royalty? Who and who is supposed to pay tax for that? Who and who? And by the time they now fail to do that, there should be really the serious political willingness to deal with whosoever is responsible for shortchanging the government, even if it's one cover.
Right.
And I think that's where the section 23 and 24, which talks about the national interest, comes in. By the time we take that section 23 and 24 very seriously, I think Nigeria will get to a better place. And with that section, and with the professor's postulation that we are not in debt crisis and exceeding the target, holding on to that section will make us a better place in 2019.
One of the biggest challenges Nigeria faced in 2018, whether we like it or not, has to do with hate speech, fake news. As you look to 2019, as we begin 2019 on this note, what are the takeaways from 2018? What are we looking at in 2019?
Thank you so much. Hate speech concerns you and I. Where do you want our country to be? This is a critical moment of election year. What are the implications of hate speeches? Hate speeches is also tied to rumor mongering. They are like twins. So it behoves on you and I. Journalists just don't report, for instance. We get our sources. And for you to be a good Nigerian, and for us to get to that promised land, hate speeches must be reduced to the barest minimum. Hate speeches even affects the politicians so much that their campaign slogans are being manipulated. And that's why we just have to take this very, not just on the journalists, but you and I.
Right. Now, fake news, closely tied to that, with the hate speech, fake news.
Well, fake news. We thank the Honorable Minister that he has taken that as a challenge. Fake news, as far as I'm concerned, we discussed this in NUJ and Nigerian Guild of Editors a lot. A typical Nigerian journalist don't write fake news. That's the truth. Nigerian journalists are one of the best, are one of the most refined in the world. We have records to show that. And if we have some people who call themselves journalists, and like for instance, let me tell you, when we started our magazine, The Distinguished Nigerian and DN News, in my own environment, about 5-6 newspapers and magazines came out. Non-registered, and they print. They print just few copies. After about, we are 10 years now, some of them came back to me and said, excuse me, sir, we've lost out. What is the secret of your sustaining your profession? I said, because you are not professionals. So one problem we have, some people call themselves journalists in this country. For goodness sake, they are not journalists. And you don't refer to those type of men and women as journalists. You refer to our members who are credible journalists as journalists. Siri Stover, you are a journalist. Big additional is. And so we need to clarify that.
You see, sadly and unfortunately, honestly, it still brings us back to nationalism, one people, one country. Unfortunately, there are some online media, online journals that have a lot of people that visit the sites.
That's right. Yeah, the challenge of the new media.
Exactly. Yeah. Come up with fake news and so on.
That's right.
That there is nothing you can do, because somebody could be in Togo and send everything all over the world. So that's why I said, look, this brings us to Nigeria, one people, one nation.
That's right.
But then unfortunately also in the political elites, you find out that in some parties, I don't want to mention names, in some parties there are members, senior members of that party that call about division of this country, that have been seen with people or persons that do not believe in this country. So, as long as you don't believe in your country, so you will try to propagate fake news, hate speech, so on. But as long as we agree that, look, let's be our brother's keepers.
Yes, not necessarily journalists.
Absolutely.
Not necessarily journalists. But people now call those people journalists.
Well,
that's my problem.
Yeah. And
they call them journalists. They are not journalists.
The social media has not helped matters. And that there is nothing you can do. So I call on all of us and appeal to us as a nation, as a people, to please watch our words, our rhetorics, and to ensure that whatever you dish out there, let it be something that can unite the country.
And to follow our codes. We need to follow our codes.
Some good in social media.
No, there are a lot of good about social media. Too many good things about social media, but there are also bad things about it.
This issue of fake news and hate speech. Fake news, for example, was the harbinger upon which the First World War we witnessed in the world. When there was a fake orchestrated lies against a priest who was assassinated in Syria. That was what led to the first distance. And then hate speech against the Jews was what led Adolf Hitler into leading the Second World War. Rwanda. You remember? Rwanda. And look at Rwanda, look at South Sudan, look at Korea, look at Senegal. Many examples. So, hate speech and fake news are the #1 greatest enemies. And one of those reasons why you have so much perpetration of this is from the time we now abolish history as a curriculum in our schools. People don't know the origin regarding how Nigeria was built up. For example, I always give this example of India. India, people are living so. By the time you said, I hate this person, indirectly you are hating God because he was created by God. Whether you see a pig or you see a dog or you see even a vulture has its functional utility on earth. That's why God creates it, because it has the function of being somebody that is a scavenger, taking away dead animals for you. That is the responsibility God has made it for you. So God did not discuss with anybody who will be my father or my mother. If God had wished, I would have been an animal or a river or a tree or whatever. But God decided I should be a human being and in man form and in so particular location of so part of the world. Look at in India, because of civilization and understanding that they are not the ones that create human beings. You will have a neighbor. You will be a Muslim. I will be somebody that is worshipping a cow. As a Muslim on a festival of Salah Ileya, you will bring your cow and slaughter in front of me. That is what I'm worshipping, as somebody that believes in worshipping of cow. But they are living in peace and harmony without any regulation. Imagine if it's in Nigeria, because of the way we try to really bring an impossible thing. Our constitution is clear, sections 1 and 2. Nigeria is an indivisible and indissoluble nation. And sections 8 and 9 clearly talks about if you want to change Nigeria, this is the procedure you should go about. There are some technical requirements there that makes it almost impossible for you to amend. And the same constitution, if you take sections 15, subsection 1, talks about unity and faith, peace and progress. Subsections 3 and 4 and 5 says that you have the freedom to go any part of Nigeria and establish your investments and all movable and immovable assets. And then you can marry from any part of the country, you can marry from any region. What is that reason? The reason is simply because we are only vicegerents of God on earth to really manage the environment. So you see different people, different cultures, different traditions, different religions, not for anything for us to appreciate that God can do anything in any diverse way he so wish. But the important responsibility he put up on us is that which will try to evaluate and find out those good things in anything there that God has created, so that we integrate it as a whole for advancement of the nation, for the development of the polity, for the betterment of human beings that we have as citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So long we are united, so long the nation will prosper. Every country now is moving towards inclusiveness. Nationalism and patriotism is the reason why President Trump, for example, said that America for Americans. Other countries now, when UK refused to go in line with the opponents, they said, no, we want to protect our interests. That is the deal now. Everybody is trying to be united. In Nigeria, we are going in the reverse order. And we want to reach the El Dorado point of emerging as the best superpower in Africa that will represent black race in the Committee of Nations. We really have to do service to God by appreciating the diversities and exploiting all the goodies, so that we integrate all the good things and build a pyramid for the development and advancement of black nations in the world.
All right, all said and done, Prof, with the benefit of experiences of 2018, what do you look at this brand new year 2019? A society that is forging ahead?
I think so. I'm very optimistic and very hopeful. I'm more confident of the economic and political future of our country. And I know that the growth that has started quite recently will be sustained in 2019. I actually see an average of 2.3%, 2.5% growth for the country. But probably that would be after the election. But I'm very optimistic, because I know that the president has said it many times that he's committed to free election, and that is the critical thing.
Right.
He's a beneficiary of a free and fair election.
So that brings us to the next issue here, and just as this program was promoted before we went on air, some discerning Nigerians sent a message and said, yes, review 2018, project 2019, but can the political class, the political elite, say to us that we will still have a country after the elections?
Oh, no, absolutely.
Right.
Because you could see that recently the major political parties, the presidential candidates, signed an accord that, look, there shall be free and fair election, fair play, no violence. And in the states also, the governors and their other candidates are doing so. So I call on all of us to please abide by that. Let's go for a fair contest. May the winner, whoever, that will lead us to a better people, emerge. May we not fight amongst ourselves. May we understand that politics is not a matter of life and death, just like the president said. May we also understand that, look, you can be a winner today and a loser tomorrow. We were losers at one time, but we won now. But even if you lose election, that does not mean you're out of government. You could still contribute. So let's forge ahead. One nation, one people, one country, one family.
Okay. I think to add, I think Nigerians, we expect a lot of good things this time. Over the years, we have a lot of political education. And this education has taken place, has remolded most of us, especially the electorates. So there will be a lot of surprises in time, which will be as a result of this political consciousness and awareness. So let's wait and see. But I'm happy for one thing. The present administration has laid a proper foundation and template to ensure that this year's election is going to be thorough. I can see the signs here and there.
Okay. And Nasara, well,
Yes.
in a short time from now, next month, perhaps you'd be standing somewhere and looking at scores of boxes.
Exactly.
Of ballot boxes.
Yes, I do not have any doubt whatsoever that there will be peaceful, free, fair, and unprecedentedly masses-oriented election. The number of electors this year hitting about 80-something million registered voters really shows you that people are interested in the democratic power play. What I want to advise is that after the election, we want to see all politicians putting their hands on deck. There should not be division whatsoever, whether you are a legislator, whether you are in the executive, whether you are in the judiciary. For example, the question of fight against corruption should be sacrosanct. Fight against corruption, like I said, Section 15, subsection 5, President Buhari is only bringing it all based on the responsibility entrenched on him by Section 130 of the Constitution that says he is the Chief Executive Officer of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, by virtue of which he is the Chief Navigator. He said we should do it. It is a mandatory requirement. We want to see entrenchment of the same Muhammadu Buhari in the quality of ministers he will appoint when he gets re-elected. We want to see the entrenchment of the same Buhari's principle of fight against corruption, economic revival, whatever programs he has sound. We want to see the replication of that in every member of the National Assembly, so that we will have that motto of the Federal Republic: unity and peace, faith and progress. The same thing with the governors. There should not be any reason why we have governors running parallel types of policies and programs different from the ruling party, especially if they are members belonging to the same ruling party. By the time you now got elected, political party is a vehicle. Section 221 to 229 clearly talks about political engineering in Nigeria. Political party is a vehicle. Its number one responsibility is education of the electors, education of the citizenry. Political parties should educate the electors regarding their rights, privileges, and the duty on the federal government and the state government to entrench developmental projects for them. Interest for nation building should be paramount over and above any other primordial consideration of the economic gain or monetary gain you will have as a member elected either in the executive or appointed, either appointed by the executive or elected to be in the House of Parliament. We will really need to see national interest overriding any other consideration, whether it's political or whatever. We want to see evolution of statesmen that will really be crying and die for the nation, based on the foundation of the Federal Republic of Nigeria from 1960 as we saw to date. We want to see that.
So it's time to go now, and time to say Happy New Year.
Once
more. For all our guests, Farouk Adamu Aliyu, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
All right, and Professor Ken Ife, Thanks for being here and Happy New Year.
Thank you very much.
Right. Menasara.
We stand for a united Nigeria.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you for being here. And Gbenga, thank you and Happy
Thank
New
you
Year.
very much. Happy New Year, Nigeria.
And thank you too. And once again, Happy New Year. Thank you for being part of this program. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Let's go out and have a great 2019. Bye for now.
From the analog to the digital system.
NTA has 8 network channels. Before then, all our content were competing for one network.
As we go on, we are very specialized. We have the parliament, entertainment, languages. Each and every one of them has its own identity that caters for a particular group of audience that cuts across the nation at large.
Driving the dream in a language you understand.
Get a channel that's adapted to your local needs.
Taking you along every inch of the way. NTA multi-channel, a network within the network. You can't beat the rich.
His submission and sent him back to court if he was overruled. However, the fact that courts jettison their power willingly, which has been given by the Constitution to be able to stay proceedings in deserving cases, the fact that they do so embolden trial courts to think that they can no longer be corrected by the corrective powers of appellate courts. And because of the fact that the maturity in trial courts may not be as high as the maturity in the appeal courts, the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court, due to long association with the law, you find that injustice may be perpetrated in cases where the people have nothing to do with corruption or other similar issues. Hence, it's not a one-cap-fits-all. It's really something that the court should go back to the original position, where a stay of proceedings is a matter of discretion. And because it's a matter of discretion, no one case is similar to the other, and no one is authority for the other. If the legislature says you cannot bring a stay of proceedings, what it is saying is that every case is similar and therefore it is a blanket ban. But the judges themselves have recognized for over 300 years that in matters of discretion, no one case is similar to the other. No one case is precedent. No one case acts as stare decisis. So on the strength of this reasoning alone, very respectfully, the Supreme Court is wrong.
So what are some of the effects, probably negative effects of not staying proceedings that you are trying to point out?
There's only one. It is that the horse